Good evening, everyone. I'm Kalla, and welcome to my stream. So, after last week's failure to get to the end of this game, because we got stuck on a bad ending and I couldn't figure out how to get around it, so I messed around a bit off stream and I finally got it to do something. So we're basically back where we were last week. Yeah. Changes made were no, I can't remember all of them. But no more snuggle time. We had to let him wake up naturally. And yes, say that it was more important to make people's meals. Which actually brought up another choice of who I was doing that for, which the correct one turned out to be for me. So that's the thing. Right, anyway. So just set this alert to the previous choice to the new one that just came up. So we're going to start from here again. So the answer to this one was no. This was whether I'd agree with his assessment that my family, what was it, didn't care or something like that. Anyway, no. My lack of response brought him back to his senses.
失礼しました。あなたのご家族を他人である私がどうこう言う資格はありませんね。
Thank you.
え?
Thank you for worrying about me, for caring about me.
そんなんではありますような。あなたといると調子が狂う。
Does it?
そうだです。
How so?
あなたと目が合うだけで変な動悸がして胸が苦しくなってついでに息も苦しくなってでもどうしてもあなたのことが気になってつい目で追ってしまってさっきの話だって誰にも話す気なんてなかったのに。
So what? You don't like talking to me?
いやではありません。
So you do like it? Well?
好きです。勘違いするなよ。その好きっていうのはあなたが面白いからであって。本当の私はこんなんじゃなくて硬派で冷静で頭が良くて誰かの力に頼らないで自分だけの力で行動する男なんです。
Yeah, I know. You're pretty dreamy. That's why being around you makes me so flustered, and talking to you is so much fun.
そうですか。
Yep. Yes, tsunderes. Tsunderes are my favorite type of adere. And also hay.
私もあなたと一緒にいるのは悪くありません。
And this, right here, is the new choice that appeared after I went and fixed the choices earlier. This seems like kind of an important choice here. So now you know Red enjoys your company, will you confess your feelings? The answer to this has got to be yes, right? I mean, we're trying to date the dude, so the answer has got to be yes. Red, there's something I want to say. I really like you. both as a friend and as a romantic prospect. Did you not hear what I said? Okay, here it is again. I really like you, Red. Oh, you're bleeding. Oh no, he's got a nosebleed again, hasn't he? I used a fresh handkerchief to sop up the blood from another one of his chronic nosebleeds. Red? I peered into his eyes. Normally, this is the part where he'd scream and or shove me away, but this time he froze in place like a statue. Hey, we've properly broken him this time. Hello? I waved my hand in front of his face. No dice. Is your fever flaring up again? I put my hand to his forehead. He didn't even flinch. Admittedly, his forehead did feel warm, as did the rest of his face, which was currently tomato red. Just then... Ah! As I pressed my hand against him, he roughly seized me by the wrist. He glared at me, his cheeks flushed crimson.
Miss Alice!
Yes? I shrank back, but he refused to relinquish his grip on my wrist. Instead, he leaned in. Red? Right as the tip of his nose brushed mine. A torrent of blood spewed forth, and he collapsed onto my chest. Oh, poor guy, he was trying so hard. I am going to read through everything that we get again instead of skipping it, just because, well, skipping it won't be much fun for you guys, will it? I don't understand romance. I don't understand emotions, especially not hers. How can I get her to notice me? When I arrived home at our little cottage, no one was there to greet me. It was so dark and quiet that, for a moment, it felt like all the boisterous fun earlier was merely a dream. When I flicked on the lights, I noticed a small amount of money on the table. This was my food money. You see, my mother worked at the flower shop. She worked from morning until night and was rarely ever home. Whenever she did come home, however, she always left some money for food. The house was always empty. No people, nothing. To me, this was normal. Emptiness was normal. And my heart was empty too. But recently, things had changed. Lately, I despised going home. Each night, I wished I could skip 12 hours ahead to the next day. I longed to spend my time in the sunshine with my two favourite people. I yearned for that warmth. My dinner at night could never compare to grandmother's home cooking earlier that day. I clutched the Red Riding Hood, her gift to me, in my hands. Here in this empty house, it was my one and only treasure. I'm sorry, Lord. I'm a bad kid. Whenever my mother was around, she would always tell me,
いいこと?あなたは他の子と違ってとってもいい子なの。だから、お外で遊んではダメ。周りのみんなは狼なの。狼はどんな悪いことをするかわからないから、話しかけられても知らん顔をしているのですよ。お母さんがいない間、ちゃんとお留守番してるのよ。もし誰かがこの家にやってきても、決して中に入れてはいけません。はい、お母さん。
but I broke that promise. I disobeyed my mother, left the house, and even befriended a wolf. Not only that, but I received a gift from the wolf's grandmother, and I loved it with all my heart. I knew I was doing something wrong, and yet I just couldn't keep myself away from grandmother's house.
いらっしゃいませ。お花はどうですか？
One day, I randomly came to a stop outside the flower shop. The flowers on display were radiant and beautiful, as were the smiles of the women admiring them. Just then, I thought of grandmother. It occurred to me that perhaps she'd appreciate a return gift as a thank you for the Red Riding Hood. Unfortunately, I didn't have the money to buy flowers. So I decided to go looking for flowers in the forest. Fortunately, I managed to find a few small ones, so I picked them and headed off to grandmother's house.
あ、今日は遅かったじゃねえか。お、なんだその花。
I hung my head in shame.
どうしたんだ？
おばあさん、これ昨日のお礼に。
おや、かわいいお花だね。私にくれるのかい？どうもありがとう。
I held out the flowers I picked in the forest, and sure enough, she looked positively delighted.
赤ずきんちゃんは優しい子だね。その赤ずきん、そんなに気に入ったのかい？
うん。
ああ、そうかいそうかい。ならもう一枚作ってあげようね。
When grandmother praised me, it made me feel like maybe I wasn't such a bad kid after all.
おばあさん、喜んでくれてよかったな。
On my way home, I passed by the flower shop once again. The flowers there were all much bigger and more beautiful than the ones from the forest. In an instant, I quickly grew ashamed of myself. Perhaps she would have preferred a flower from the shop over some measly forest wildflowers. But with the money I had on hand, I could scarcely afford a little flower, much less a big, impressive one. So, what was my solution? Simple. I decided to save up my money.
お腹減ったな。
I didn't get an allowance, so instead I decided to use my food money as flower money. Naturally, I still needed to eat, so I bought the cheapest canned food I could find and subsisted off of that.
おばあさん、喜んでくれるといいな。
The thought of her smiling face made it easier to ignore my hunger. In the meantime, I continued to pick flowers from the forest every day.
ありがとうね。赤ずきんちゃんはとってもいい子だよ。
Grandmother would praise me each time I brought her flowers. And each time I deluded myself into thinking I wasn't a bad kid. Then one day my friend said to me,
花なんて摘んでさ、めめしいんじゃねえの？
which I disagree with. Flowers are good for everyone.
そうか？
そうだよ。男ならもっとでっかいことやろうぜ。
例えば？
例えば、そうだな。ここら辺は木が多いし、木の上に秘密基地作ろうぜ。そこなら誰にも邪魔されずに好きなことできるぞ。
ダメだ。それはいけないっておばあさんに言われてるだろ。
Because my friend had a weak constitution, he was barred from strenuous physical activity. Thus, grandmother had asked me to watch over him and make sure he didn't run himself ragged.
ちょっとぐらい平気だって。
ダメだ。
As I protested, my friend grew red in the face and began to shout at me.
なんだよ、いいこぶってさ。
別にそんなんじゃ。
いいこぶるんなら、なんでこんなところでサボってるんだよ。 普通ならもっと他にやることあるだろう。
それはお母さんが言っちゃダメだって。
お母さんがなんだよ。お前だって母さんとの約束破ってここに来てんだろ。
それは
お前の母さんおかしいよ。お前のことほっぽって自分は遊び歩いてるんだろ。
Stop it.
俺見たぜ。お前の母さんが男の人と歩いてるの。
Stop it, stop it, stop it!
こら、なんてこと言うんだい。
なんでばあちゃんはこいつの味方するんだよ。
今のはあんたが悪い。
なんだよ、俺が悪いって。悪いのはこいつだって同じだろ。
As he spoke, he pointed at me. He was right, of course. I knew I was a bad child deep down.
ばあちゃんは俺のだろ。ばあちゃんの孫は俺だ。俺のばあちゃんだ。
Just then, he doubled over, clutching at his chest. All the colour drained from his face as he grimaced in pain.
大丈夫かい。
Grandmother dashed over to him in a hurry, and in the process, she dropped the flowers I had given her. As he writhed in pain, she held him close and spoke with a shaky voice.
大丈夫だからね。おばあちゃんがいるからね。しっかりするんだよ。おばあちゃん。
That was the moment I understood. I could act like an angel and give her flowers all I wanted, but I would never be her real grandson. The sun rose on the horizon. Meanwhile, Red was sound asleep on the sofa. He must have been exhausted after everything that happened yesterday. I stroked his head through the fabric of his riding hood. Truth be told, I was tempted to take his hood off, but I knew better. After all, that Red Riding Hood meant the world to him. No one but him had the right to remove it. I leaned in and whispered in his ear, "I'm going to fix you, Red." 2 hours later. Oh, good morning, Red. I was in the middle of making breakfast when Red sat up on the sofa. He froze in place for a moment. Maybe he wasn't entirely awake yet. Red? I raised my voice a little louder.
おはようございます。
Oh, this has changed. There isn't a previously Red here anymore. Haha. He sprang back and tumbled off the sofa. Are you okay?
はい。あ、そうだ。狼は。
What about him? Red seized me by the shoulders.
何もなかったか。怪我は。
No?
起きてるならなんで起こさなかった。あなたは狼に狙われているんですよ。何かあってからでは遅いんです。
Oh, I'm sorry. At least you didn't scream at me this time.
うわあ、すみません。
Oh, no, it's fine. Spoke too soon. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. It's just, you looked so peaceful, and I couldn't bear to ruin it.
気を使わないでください。あなたがどうにかなった方が心配だ。
I'm sorry. I'll be sure to wake you next time.
約束ですよ。
I promise. Normally I would have liked to do a pinky swear, but given his condition, I was best off not pushing my luck. Oh, that reminds me, breakfast is ready.
朝ごはん
As soon as he saw what was waiting for him on the table, his eyes grew round as saucers.
これは
It's a skillet cake. After you mentioned baking cakes yesterday, I felt like making one myself. I was hoping to make it a little fancier than this, but I didn't have enough time or ingredients on hand. Sorry. The cake itself was baked in a skillet using soft wheat flour and baking soda. Then I added whipped cream, jam, and mint leaves as a garnish. All told, it was still a rather plain cake, but at least this way it resembled something along the lines of a chiffon cake.
いえ十分豪華です。おばあさんの作るケーキはこんなおしゃれじゃなくてもっとシンプルでしたから。
Oh, really? I should have asked for more details. Can you tell me more about them?
作っていただけるのですか？
Yeah, no promises of course, but I'll give it my best shot. I am pretty handy in the kitchen after all.
知っています。
This time it was my turn to look at him in surprise. Usually he'd always eat my cooking in complete silence, so his opinion of my skill had been a total mystery until now.
食べてもいいですか？
Oh, yes, of course. He sliced off a forkful and then shoved it in his mouth. How is it?
美味しいです。
Really? Oh my gosh, I'm so glad. Go ahead and have as much as you like, okay? I can make as many of these as you want. Oh, and also, do you have any other requests or favourite dishes? Just say the word and I'll do my best to make as much as you want. I got so excited I started babbling at 1,000 miles a minute, and kept repeating as much as you want for some reason.
あなたは
In contrast to my giddiness, Red looked somewhat conflicted. I tilted my head at him, encouraging him to speak his mind.
いいえ何でもありません。
It had now been a week since I'd received the first blackmail letter and 5 days since Red's arrival at my house. Once again, I was headed off to school. I wasn't going to let anything stop me, not even the big bad wolf and his mean, scary blackmail.
本当に行くんですか？
Yep.
休んだ方がよろしかったのでは？あなたは狼に狙われているんですよ。あんな脅迫状まで届いて何かあったらどうするんですか？
So you think I should just hide in my house forever? I don't think so.
あなたは危機感が薄いんですよ。どうにかなった後では遅いんです。
Red has been bickering with me about this all morning. It's strange. He never would have acted like this just a few short days ago. But maybe this was to be expected. After all, I was being pursued by a scary, vicious wolf. What's the problem? You'll protect me, won't you?
当然です。あなたがどこにいようと、私が駆けつけて、あなたを悪漢から守ります。
Sounds like I can really count on you.
当然です。私は警察官ですから。
Right. Hey,
あ
we both started talking at the same time and then both hesitated in unison as well. You first.
いえ、そちらこそどうぞ。
With neither of us willing to go first, an awkward silence descended between us. We were getting nowhere fast, so eventually I caved. What do you plan to do after the case is closed?
どうするつもりって。
When I asked you last time, you said you'd leave as soon as the wolf was apprehended, right?
それは当然です。職務を果たしたのですから。
I see. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Another new part, another new part. After a moment of silence, I looked into his eyes and said, What if I asked you to... What if I asked you to stay?
え
I really like...
ああわあわあ
I like...
わあ
Every time I attempted to profess my feelings for him, he interrupted me with the force of 1,000 suns. Good grief, how shy can one guy be? Not that I don't love that about him, of course. What were you going to say? I casually changed the subject.
あ、はい。私は
He faltered. The light seemed to leave his eyes.
やっぱり何でもありません。
Oh,
何ですか？狼ですか？
no, I just realized we're almost at the school.
あ、はい。
Well, anyway, I'll be going now. I gracefully spun on my heel and turned towards the school building.
はい。お気をつけて。
I quickly found, however, that I was unable to move. Why, you ask? Because Red had grabbed me by the arm and was refusing to let me go.
うわあ
All at once, he leapt away, his face flushed scarlet.
すみません。つい。
No, it's fine. Evidently, even he wasn't quite sure why he'd grabbed me.
ああ、なぜ私はこんなことを。
He shrank down into a ball as he mumbled to himself. Much as I wanted to stay and relish the moment, I had classes to attend. I crouched down and looked into his eyes. Okay, I really gotta go now.
はい。
He jumped to attention and saw me off with a dutiful salute. What's wrong? Feeling sick or something?
ああ、そうだな。お前の顔が気持ち悪くてな。
Rude. If you keep bullying me, I'm not going to make your lunch anymore.
いらねえって言ってるのに、毎回作ってよこしてるのはお前の方だろうが。
Oh, right.
随分とご機嫌なようだが、奴とは仲良くやってるみたいだな。
Hehehe, that obvious, huh? Anyway, yes, things are going well. Better than they were before, at any rate. It's been a busy week, to say the least. I slumped my shoulders.
なんだそんな顔して。疲れたか
His expression didn't shift a fraction, but his tone took on a hint of amusement. Exhausted, actually. Did you see the damage? Flower beds trampled, house ransacked, and a broken window. That's crossing a line.
俺に言ってもしょうがないだろ。
I mean, yeah, but... Is Wolf out sick again today?
ああ、そうだな。今日は見舞いに行く日だろ。
Yep, I even baked a cake. I held up my wicker basket containing small get-well gifts.
ああ、そうか。
Ugh, you don't care at all, do you?
どう返せって言うんだ
If Wolf were here, he'd say, Whoa, are you for reals? That's so awesome. I knew I could count on you, Sterna. Or something along those lines. Sadly, my imitation of Wolf, which, I'll have you know, was extremely accurate, didn't win me any points with Mr. Huntsman. Ah, don't give me that look. It's like talking to a brick wall. This is why you can never keep a girlfriend, you know?
勝手に言い寄ってきて、 勝手に幻滅してるだけだろ。
Sure, buddy. Don't blame me when you end up alone at age 40.
どうでもいいな。
With that comeback, Mr. Huntsman pulled a lollipop out of his jacket pocket and started to unwrap it.
そんなことより、狼の家に見舞いに行くんだろ。あいつには俺から連絡しといてやるよ。
Thank you.
じゃあ帰れ。
Oh, come on. Let's keep chatting a little more.
俺はな、お前と違って暇ではないんだ。
But we're on lunch break. He frowned at me, the lollipop stick poking out from between his lips. Let's talk.
Ch.
Mr. Huntsman, am I a bad person?
ああ、そうだな。悪い子だ。というわけだ。帰れ。
No crime goes unpunished. Which means I might get my just desserts here soon. Mr. Huntsman listened to me intently.
狼か。
Yeah.
まあ、脅迫状からわかる通り、狼は独自の正義感の持ち主のようだからな。何をしでかすかわからん。
Are you worried? That's so sweet. I wonder what Red's up to right now.
お前を監視してるんだろ。
Yeah, to keep me safe.
嬉しそうだな。
I know. Messed up, isn't it? As I spoke, I wandered to the window. Outside, Red was patrolling around the school gates, looking anxious. Think he'll come over here?
来ないだろ。
There's still so much I don't know about him.
今さらすぎるだろ。 だいたい1週間も経ってないのに相手のことがわかるわけないだろ。どうせお前のことだから一緒にいるうちに好きになってちょっといい雰囲気になったからって告白でもしたんだろ。
Yes, that's exactly what we did. You got me there.
お前はオープンすぎて一般人の感性に合わないんだ。少しは自重しろ。売られてもいいのか？
Honestly, I could live with that.
そういえばお前はそうだったな。
I don't care if the one I love rejects me, as long as it means he'll be happy.
相変わらずよくわからん思考回路だな。
Isn't that your job? Or is that hunter license just for show?
漁師だからこそ言うんだろ。
I smirked at him. Then, as my gaze casually drifted to the window, I spotted Red glancing around nervously as he headed into the school building. Oh!
なんだ
He's coming this way. I gotta go.
ユリカ。
Yes?
狼には気をつけろよ。
Red!
ミス・アリス。
What are you doing here? He pressed his index finger to his lips. Then he gestured for us to move towards the bushes, so I obliged. No, really, what's going on?
すみません。見つかったら追い出されるかと思って。
I wanted to disagree, but instead I laughed vaguely.
とりあえず、無事でよかった。
Of course I'm safe here. I've got my very own support network.
そういえば、ご友人がいるんでしたっけ？男の。
Yeah, he's part of it, but he's been out sick since yesterday.
昨日から？
Yeah, didn't I tell you? He caught a cold. The look on his face suggested he had only just remembered. But that's no big deal. Not like anything's happened, you know? I gave a cute little shrug. This time he looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Hadn't seen that one in a while. Plus, it's not like I don't have other friends.
まあ、言いたいことはいろいろとありますが、とにかく、あなたが無事でよかった。
He heaved a sigh of relief. On further inspection, he looked a bit pale for some reason. Is something wrong?
いえ。
Are you feeling sick? Is your fever flaring up again?
いえ、違います。ただ、あまりここにはいたくないというか。
After a moment of contemplation, I clapped my hands together. Alright then, let's skip school.
え?
I wanted to go visit my friend anyway, so this works out perfectly.
何を突然?
Ignoring his palpable hesitation, I took a few steps forward, then spun on my heel. We're going on a date, Red.
デート? デート、デート、デート、デート。
Hello, Earth to Red. I waved my hand in front of his face.
あ、すみません。つい、ぼーっとして。
It's fine.
いいんですか？サボったりなんかして。
Yeah, I don't care. Truth be told, I'm no angel.
そんなことは。
Normally I'd like to take you someplace fancy like a movie theatre, but that'll have to wait for another time. And so we found ourselves at the lakeshore. During weekdays, the entire forest area was deserted, enabling a relative level of privacy. Personally, I was in the mood to break out our lunchboxes and have a picnic. So I stabbed my fork into one of the bacon-wrapped asparagus spears and offered it to Red. Say ah.
できるわけないでしょ!
Blushing, he quickly leaned back. Darn. Oh well, I tried. I promptly gave up and put the fork in my own mouth instead.
Oh.
What was that?
なんでもないです!
His pouty face was so unbearably adorable, I couldn't help but swoon a little. Oh yeah, and I've got some leftover cake from breakfast, so let me know if you'd like some.
はい。
Oh yeah, I almost forgot. The word cake reminded me of something else. Could you tell me more about your friend's grandma's cake? Did she give you the recipe?
レシピまでは。ただ、緑色をしたケーキで、中にブドウみたいなものが入っていました。
Purple in colour with grapish things inside. What did it taste like?
ほんのりと甘かったです。渋みはそれほどなくて、形や食感はあなたが作ってくれたものとよく似ています。
Sounds like my recipe isn't too far off then. I just need to change up the ingredients. Okay, so to make the cake purple, blueberries. Look, let's do the sensible cake options here, and then if it messes up, then we'll come back. And grape-like things, actual grapes. I think I might know what to do. Maybe.
本当ですか?
Yeah, I'll give it a try sometime. Oh, but then again you're going to leave right after you catch the wolf, so...
あなたが...
Huh?
あなたがいいと言うなら、私が遊びに行きます。
Ah, yes. The way someone's had through their stomach by a cake. Clearly. I mean, that's probably not all of it, but...
ほら、それに、前にあなたが言ったじゃないですか。春の庭が綺麗だと。
Of course you can come visit me, silly. You're always welcome at my house.
ありがとうございます。
He smiled shyly.
私はいつもあなたにもらってばかりいますね。
You are, silly. You're guarding me right now, aren't you?
それは当然のことですから。
And you took care of me when I was sick, and you made me porridge, and you bought me a flower.
それは
If anything, you're the one spoiling me. So if there's ever anything I can do for you, just say the word. What the... What was lewd about that? Does he just have his mind in the gutter 24/7?
すみません。
He swayed unsteadily, his hand clutched over his nose. Are you okay?
大丈夫です。
Fine, my foot, you look white as a sheet. Okay. Gonna go with tickle. Because that was my first instinct last time, so we're gonna do this. Summoning my resolve, I got to my feet. Red?
はい。
Take this! Once his guard was down, I lunged at him and tickled his sides.
やめてください。
Good, good. That's the reaction I was hoping for. In the heat of the moment, I pushed him down. With me sitting on top of him and smirking, Red froze stock still like an ice sculpture. So I took that opportunity to shift into a lap pillow position. Once I lifted his head and placed it on my thighs, Red snapped back to reality. It's the lap pillow trope you didn't know you wanted.
太ももが頭に。
It was a good laugh, right? Quiet down now. I looked down at him sharply. Nose gushing blood, Red opened and shut his mouth repeatedly, but no words came. Meanwhile, his complexion was a kaleidoscope of colours, flushed one minute and pallid the next. If you keep bleeding this much every day, you're going to end up anemic. I pulled out a handkerchief and mopped him up.
Miss Alice.
Yes? He called my name between gasps of breath. As I peered down at him, however, he averted his gaze.
なんでもありません。
You're like a broken record today. I stroked the golden strands of hair peeking out from beneath his hood. Oh, sorry, I wasn't thinking.
いえ。
If you don't like this, just say the word and we can stop. I know what you're thinking. Oh, now you ask. And all I have to say is this. Better late than never. He didn't respond. I guess that means he's fine with it? After an awkward silence, Red seemed to regain his composure.
あなたはいつもこのようなことを私以外にもするのですか?
What?
例えば今からお見舞いに行くというご友人とかに。
Someone's jealous. No, just you, really.
本当の私を知っても。
What do you mean, the real you?
あ、いや。
He fell silent, grimacing. I stared at him intently. As I recall, the real you is... What was it you said? Stoic, rational, smart, and self-reliant? I recited his professed self-image back to him.
そうです。けれど、本当はそうではなくて、本当の私はすごく弱くて、それにとても卑怯な人間です。私は本当はとても悪い人間なんです。
Red? Okay, this is a new choice. We didn't have this before. Seeing that Red thinks he's a bad person, how will you respond? Tell him I'm no different, or tell him I forgive him? Huh. What? I don't know which one of these is the best option here. Tell him I'm no different, or tell him I forgive him. I mean, technically, I don't have anything to forgive him for, right? So it's kind of weird to forgive him for something that I don't really know about and isn't necessarily related to me. So, tell him I'm no different? Probably? Yeah, tell him I'm no different, I think. I'm the same way, you know?
あなたもですか?
Ooh, that previously read thing. Because we didn't have the choice last time. That might be the wrong option. Well, we'll find out. Yeah, the real me is dark and twisted. Maybe it's no wonder the wolf has doubt for me. I gave him a pained smile.
たとえそうだったとしても、あなたは私が守ります。
Right, thank you. You really are a sweetheart, you know that?
そうですか。
He looked to be on the verge of tears, so I gently stroked his head. This time, he didn't make a fuss about it, he just quietly accepted it. Then, after a moment, he whispered,
狼を捕まえたら、狼を捕まえたら、あなたにお話ししたいことがあります。
You can't tell me right now?
はい。今はまだ。
Well, okay. Once you've caught the big bad wolf, I'll be right there to hear you out. He pursed his lips together like he was biting back all the pain in his heart. His golden blonde lashes seemed to be trembling.
数日前までの自分はいつも一人でこんな風に誰かと一緒に過ごすなんて。
Does the solitude bother you?
あなたと一緒です。もう随分と一人でいるので、寂しいとか嫌いだとか、そういった感覚はとっくにどこかへと置き忘れてしまいました。
Did you, though? Are you sure you stopped? If you ask me, I bet you never once stopped hating it. Sure, maybe you were alone at one point, but your friend came along, right? And then you met a sweet old grandma. You really think you could go back after that? I think deep down you've been conscious of your loneliness this whole time. But look at us now, Red. I have you and you have me. And there's more to this story. So much more. I just wish you'd open your eyes and see it. One sunny afternoon found me standing outside the flower shop, hesitant. I was torn, unsure which flower to buy, unsure which would make grandmother the happiest. At last I had saved up enough money to purchase flowers from the store. All those nights of going hungry would finally be worth it. I was in high spirits, excited for the gorgeous bouquet my money could afford. Red, white, pink, purple, yellow. The flower shop was awash in colours. Personally, I was partial to red. After all, it was the same colour as the riding hood grandmother had given me. And in my eyes, that made it a special colour. My attention was drawn to the roses, which stood out among the rest of the red blooms. I was by no means an expert in flowers, but roses were familiar at least. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford a full bouquet of them when the price for even a single rose was exorbitant.
もっとお金貯めようかな。
I could afford to wait, after all. Just then, someone called out to me.
あ、いた。こんなところにいたのかよ。探したぜ。
あ、
チャーッセ。何やってんだよ、赤ずきん。
It was unusual of him to track me down.
別に何でもない。
まあいいよ。な、今から湖の方に行こうぜ。
湖？ああ、別にいいけど。
And so, at my friend's insistence, we headed to the lake where we first met. There, he told me that he'd gotten into an argument with grandmother.
喧嘩した？
あ
あんなに仲がいいのに。
あ、だってばあちゃん、うっせえんだもん。俺が大丈夫って言ってんのに、あれしちゃダメ。
それはお前を思ってのことだろ？
分かってるよ。
According to him, they'd gotten into an argument over a small trifle, leading him to run away from home.
でも、俺はもっと外で遊びたいんだ。思いっきり走りたい。遠くにだって行きたい。それなのに、いつまでもこんなちっちゃいところでおとなしくなんてしてらんねえぜ。
I felt sorry for him. He was born with a weak constitution that made strenuous physical activity dangerous.
お前はいいよな。俺なんかと違って強くてさ。冷静で頭が良くて、誰かの力に頼らないで自分の力だけで行動する狼のような男を目指してたはずなんだけどな。だから俺はお前が羨ましいよ。
I was startled to hear this. I never imagined he would ever say such a thing. Unlike me, he had everything. He was smart and confident and extroverted and rich. The more I learned about him, the more I felt like he was from a different world entirely. And yet now he claimed he wished he was me. It was simply unbelievable.
きっとお前と出会えてなかったら毎日つまんなかったんだろうな。
楽しい？
そうだよ。お前と話してるとすっげえ刺激があって面白えよ。
He dismissed my doubts with a laugh.
なあなあ、今日は夜まで付き合いよ。そんでさ、秘密基地作ろうぜ。俺さ、家からお宝持ってきたから、お前も見るだろ？見たいだろ？な。
And so I agreed to his proposal. Was it because I'd seen a new side of him? Was I tickled by the thought of him envying me? I couldn't say. But if only I'd had the sense to stop him then, things never would have turned out the way they did. We decided to build our tree fort deep in the woods. Meanwhile, I kept watch to ensure he didn't overexert himself. First, we collected tree branches, cardboard boxes, and other materials. Then I climbed up our chosen tree and used ropes to affix them as per my friend's instructions. According to him, this was how tree forts were made. Time flew by, and soon the sun began to set.
大量大量。
In our search for materials, we came across a large quantity of wooden planks. As we were hauling them back, however, we heard sirens in the distance.
なんだかうるさいな。
Just then, I got a really bad feeling. Dread crept into my heart.
なあ、 今日はこれくらいにしてもう帰らないか？
今日は夜まで付き合うって約束だっただろ。男と男の誓いを忘れたか？
忘れてないけど。
じゃあ最後まで付き合え。
わかった。
あ、そうだなあ、さっき湖でいいもの見つけたんだ。
いいもの？
This something cool was a blue tarp floating on the lake's surface. Neither of us knew what it was doing here. Maybe it was blown there by the wind.
見ろ、あれがあれば雨をしのげるぞ。
でも遠いぞ。まさか湖に入るわけにはいかないし。
木の棒を使えばなんとかなりそうだな。
Positioning himself on the end of the lake pier, he used a tree branch to attempt to reel the tarp in. Unfortunately, the tarp was at the mercy of the lake's tide, which pulled it back and forth.
もう少し。
無理するな。私がやる。
いい、俺がやる。
With a firm hold on his calves to keep him from falling in, I kept a close eye on him.
こんなところにいたのか。
Just then, a hard-eyed man came dashing out of the forest.
フードをかぶってる方。お前が狼か。
And this point here was where we found out for sure that Red's childhood friend is the same as Alice's friend from school. Which is interesting. And it's going to be real interesting if those two meet. The man grabbed me by the arm.
お前のおばあさんが倒れたんだ。今病院に運ばれた。ずっと孫の名前を呼んでる。早く行ってやれ。
ばあちゃん。
Just then there was a loud splash. My friend had slipped and fallen into the lake. Because he was forbidden from most physical activity, naturally he didn't know how to swim. The man whipped off his jacket. Unsure what to do, I just stood there.
お前は早く行け。お前のおばあさんがお前を待ってる。
He gave me a little push. I was torn between my friend drowning right in front of me and grandmother who had allegedly been whisked away to the hospital. After a fraction of a second, I turned my back on my friend and took off running.
おばあさん。
When I arrived, I found grandmother lying in a hospital bed.
なんで？
I didn't understand what had happened. Just yesterday she was the very picture of health, but today she stared blankly up at the ceiling, her face pale and lifeless.
どうなった？もしかして狼ちゃんかい？
Evidently her eyes weren't working, or else she would have known it was me.
うん。俺だよ、おばあちゃん。
I lowered my voice to try to sound more like my friend.
おお、来てくれたんだね。ありがとうね。
うん。俺、おばあちゃんが心配で。
ごめんね。おばあちゃん、心配かけちゃったね。
Tears poured from her unseeing eyes. The sight made my own eyes grow hot, but I blinked back the tears and focused on my act.
ほんとだぜ。すげえ心配したんだぜ。
おばあちゃんも狼ちゃんのことがずっと心配だったんだよ。
違う。ばあちゃんは謝らなくていいんだ。俺が全部俺が悪いんだ。俺が悪い子だから。
そんなことない。お前が悪い子だなんて誰が思うもんですか。お前はとてもいい子だよ。おばあちゃんの自慢の子だ。
ばあちゃん。 あちゃん、ごめんな。俺、本当はおばあちゃんのことをすっげえ好きだぜ。
おばあちゃんも狼ちゃんのことが大好きだよ。この先もずっと一緒にいて守ってやりたいけど、ごめんね。
そんなこと言うなよ。これからも一緒にいてくれよ。俺、これからもっと元気になるからさ。俺が元気になった姿見たいだろ。見せてやるよ。俺、足だって速いし、水の中も泳げるんだ。木登りだって誰にも負けねえよ。だから俺を置いていかないで。
This was more proof that I was a bad kid. I was supposed to be a stand-in for my friend, but instead I was telling her my own feelings.
そうだ。俺、ばあちゃんのために花束買ってきたんだ。花、好きだろ？
花？
ああ、野に咲く花じゃなくて、ちゃんとした花屋で買った花なんだぜ。
I showed her the bouquet I'd hastily purchased on my way here.
カーネーションって言うんだってさ。
Carnations were similar to roses, except softer and less intimidating. I quite like carnations. Carnations are nice. Much like grandmother herself.
そうかい。きっと綺麗な花なんだろうね。
うん。すごく綺麗なんだ。
Standing at her bedside, I took her hand and brushed it against the flowers. The red petals formed the perfect backdrop for her wizened old hand.
本当だ。すごく綺麗だ。ありがとう。お前はとても優しい、いい子だよ。
She smiled softly and closed her eyes. I don't remember much of what happened after that. I'm not sure what happened to grandmother or how I got home from the hospital. I just remember standing outside my house. This time, the lights were on inside. Was my mother home? By that point, it was late at night. She must have realized that I disobeyed her. Would she yell at me? Would she cry?
ただいま。
When I opened the door, I found my answer. It was then that I understood my mother wasn't going to yell at me, nor would she hug me. She looked at me with cold, unfeeling eyes. And after that day, she never came home again. Dear Lord, where did I go wrong? If I had obeyed my mother, if I had never ventured outside, if I had never spoken with that wolf, maybe this tragedy could have been averted. But now I'm alone. Now I have no one. No one needs me. This is only natural, of course, because this is my punishment for being bad.
これからは、もう二度と道草なんか。
That was the vow I made to myself.
ミス・アリス、ゆりかさん。うわっ
When I opened my eyes, I found Red blushing beet red. Oh, sorry. Guess I nodded off for a minute there.
いえいえいえ、とんでもございません。
His behaviour struck me as suspicious, but at the same time it was pretty par for the course where he was concerned, so I wasn't too worried. I looked around to find that the bright light of midday had now faded to twilight. Gosh, it's gotten late. I guess I got a little too comfy.
確か友人のお宅に伺う予定でしたね。
Yeah, I want to check on him. Red lifted his head out of my lap and got to his feet. He offered a hand to help me up, immediately retracted it, then offered it again, more timidly this time.
どうぞ。
You sure?
いいです。
He turned his flushed face away from me. Thank you. With his large masculine hand, he hauled me up onto my feet.
早く行きましょう。夜遅くなるとこの辺は危ないですから。
Okay. The house marked on the map was a good 30-minute walk from the lake into the woods. It's supposed to be around here. I swiveled my head all the way around, but it was a forest. All of the trees looked the same, so I had no landmarks to go by. Red followed half a step behind me. He seemed to have gotten quiet. Whoa! I slipped in some mud and nearly lost my balance, but Red caught me before I fell.
気をつけてください。この辺りは足場も悪いですから。
Sorry about that. Thanks for the help. He let go of my arm and walked ahead of me.
私の後ろをついて歩いてきてください。
He didn't bother to turn back as he spoke. Normally I would be touched by his thoughtfulness, but his voice was cold and distant, like it was back when we first met. Okay. So I slowly followed in his footsteps. Yeah, I have a horrible feeling we're just going to end up back at that same bad end, so I may have to reload that last save to that last decision, because I really feel like I messed that one up. Anyway, is this the place? Eventually we arrived at a single cottage deep in the forest. Red stopped short, staring at the ground. I walked past him and right up to the front door. Yeah, this is definitely going the exact same way. Oh no. At my feet lay a single red flower. A carnation? It was bright and healthy looking, almost like it was fresh from the flower shop. I turned back to find Red still staring down at the ground. Yep, this is the same bad ending. I am absolutely certain of it. I scooped up the carnation and knocked on the door. Is anyone home? But no matter how hard I knocked, no one answered. For a moment I thought perhaps we had the wrong place, but this was the only house in the vicinity. Hesitantly I twisted the doorknob. Strangely enough, it was unlocked. The lights were all off, but the moonlight streaming in through the window faintly illuminated the interior. As I peered inside, out of nowhere, someone clapped a hand over my mouth. Yeah, this is it for sure. They wrapped their arms around me, pinning me in place. Then, before I could even scream, they dragged me off somewhere. Ow, that hurts! Quit pulling so hard!
うるせえな。ここでおとなしく待ってろ。
Hi, Master Huntsman. Whoa! He shoved me from behind and I toppled to the ground like a sack of potatoes. Ow! With no time to brace myself, I hit the floor hard.
ああ、すまん。
I glared up at him. He didn't look very sorry at all. He leaned against the wall and returned my gaze with his almond-shaped eyes. Why are you doing this?
お前が勝手な行動を起こさないよう、保険だよ、保険。
Here in this forest cottage, my captor was none other than Mr. Huntsman. He reached into his pocket, took out a pack of cigarettes, and set one between his lips. No smoking!
こんな時でもうっせえな。
Nope, not now, not ever. With guys like these, you have to take the hardline approach. Holding the cigarette between his fingers, Mr. Huntsman let out a shallow sigh.
分かってるだろうが、くれぐれも外に出るんじゃないぞ。じゃあな。
And with that cold, unfeeling comment, he shut the door. Red. I sat down on my bed and tucked my knees under my chin. When Mr. Huntsman kidnapped me, Red didn't move an inch. Yep, this is the... Seen this a few times. Whoa. Yeah, we definitely messed up that last one. Not that I blamed him. It was all really sudden and unexpected, so he probably wasn't sure how to react. But for some reason, the memory of his pained expression made my chest ache. I hope he'll come to my rescue.
残念ながら彼は来ないよ。
Hello again, Mr. Wizard. Who's there?
彼は君がさらわれてしまったという現実に耐えかねて道草してしまった。
That's...
あるはずないと言えるかい？彼は素直で騙されやすい。そんな彼の目の前で守るべき対象だった君がさらわれたんだ。彼の心は深く傷つき、自らの罪と向き合えず、罪を重ねてしまってもおかしくはない。そして今、君も罪を重ねてしまった。そしてこの僕も。
Oh, fairy tales mark the end. That's a different name for this bad ending. It was trying too hard last time. But it was the exact same thing. It just had a different name. Okay, right. Back to the last decision point. Tell him I forgive him is probably the right option. Well then, I forgive you.
許す
Yeah, so what if you're a bad person? I can forgive you for that. They say no crime goes unpunished, but for me, no sin is unforgivable.
許し
Haha, I bet I must sound like Mother Teresa or something, huh? Regardless, I'll still forgive you, no matter what anyone says. Even you. You don't have to beat yourself up over it. It's been a different experience for you? Yeah, in what way? At this, his eyes widened slightly. He looked to be on the verge of tears. Right, okay. I am going to use the skip button now because I have read through it on this stream. So we're just gonna skip to the next bit. Skip. Also, I don't want to voice Red. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, well, we're going right. So, what was okay? So the point at which it changes is after she gets dragged off, and now we're back in Red's past again, I guess. Oh, you never played a Tame games before, huh? I have played so many. I think I've been playing a Tame games for like. Ooh, how long? 12 or 13 years? On and off. I burnt out a couple of times on them and come back. Anyway, right. Back to Red's... Back to the inside of Red's head. Okay. I didn't visit grandmother's house again until well after the hospital incident had passed. One day I found myself standing right outside. Instantly my face stiffened. Why did I come here? Didn't I promise myself I wouldn't do this anymore? I cursed myself 1,000 times. Suddenly I felt the contents of my stomach rush up my throat and I vomited there on the spot. Ooh, poor kid. The pain made tears prick at the corners of my eyes. But no one was there to help me. No surprise there, of course. This was my punishment. I collapsed to my knees and gasped for breath as I stared at the house. On first glance, it seemed much the same as always, but upon further inspection, I realised it had lost its lived-in feel. Somehow, even a total idiot like myself was still smart enough to understand what that meant. Grandmother was gone, and so was my friend. It was then that I understood. The real punishment was the searing pain I felt in my chest at that moment. And I needed to accept it. Which is why I returned there again. Until then I had been avoiding the lake and the forest, but after that day I started making an active effort to visit that house. With each visit I remembered all the fun times we had, and my heart threatened to burst. At some point I developed a tradition of placing a single red carnation at the front door each time. And he's been doing that to this day, which is why there was one on there. It was a symbol of my crime as well as a token of my apologies. A year passed, then 2, then 3. As it turns out, time is a scary thing. You see, the more time passed, the more I felt my memories fade. Then a few more years passed, and I finally spotted that hard-eyed man again, Ryoshi the hunter. Oh. Ow, that hurts! Quit yanking so hard!
うるせえな。ここでおとなしく待ってろ。
See, now we're in this and we don't have a previously read. Haha. We did it. Whoa! He shoved me from behind and I toppled to the floor like a sack of potatoes. Ow! With no time to brace myself, I hit the floor hard.
Ah, すまん。
I glared up at him. He didn't look very sorry at all. He leaned against the wall and returned my gaze with his almond-shaped eyes. Why are you doing this?
お前が勝手な行動を起こさないよう、保険だよ、保険。
Here in this forest cottage, my captor was none other than Mr. Huntsman. He reached into his pocket, took out a pack of cigarettes, and set one between his lips. No smoking.
こんな時でもうっせえな。
Nope, not now, not ever. With guys like him, you have to take the hardline approach. Holding the cigarette between his fingers, Mr. Huntsman let out a shallow sigh.
赤ずきんがお前を探してる。
Ha. He is?
お前のおかげでいろいろ面倒になっちまった。分かってるだろうが、くれぐれも外に出るんじゃないぞ。じゃあな。
And with that cold, unfeeling comment, he shut the door. Now that I was alone... After being told to stay put... I mean... I don't think this girl is as do as instructed sort of person. Yurika's definitely not gonna sit there quietly, is she? From everything we learned about her, there's like absolutely no way that she's gonna just stay there just because he told it to, right? Absolutely no way. So, leave. Slowly, quietly, I reached for the doorknob. Whoa!
何やってんだ、お前。
The door opened so suddenly that I fell back onto the floor. I tried to play innocent, but it was clear he'd seen right through my little act. He fixed me with a cold stare that clearly conveyed how much of an idiot he thought I was. Then I noticed he had dragged someone else in with him.
ついでにだが、お前が変な気を起こさないよう見張りを立てることにした。
あててててててて、話せこの乱暴男、不法侵入で訴えるぞ。
Hey! It's Alice! Haven't seen him since the beginning of the game.
ああ、そうか。好きにしろ。
This other guy had blonde hair and blue eyes.
隣にいたのを引っ張り出してきた。ま、話し相手くらいにはなってくれるだろうさ。
Flung into the room like meat to the dogs, the blonde guy promptly face planted onto the floor.
くそ、あの冷徹冷血冷然やにくそ男、今に覚えておけよ。
Wow, Alice is as rude as I remember him being. Are you okay? At this, the guy leapt to his feet, clutched his swollen nose, and whirled to face me.
君はバカか。大丈夫なわけないだろ。君は現状把握もできないのか。世間知らずの囚われのお姫様気取りか。女に嫌われる女の典型だな。あーくそ、鼻が痛い。
Looks like you don't have a nosebleed. That's a relief.
話なんて僕みたいな儚げな美少年が出すわけないだろう。出すとしたら思春期のガキかむっつりスケベかギャグキャラと相場が決まっている。
Just then, a stream of red descended from the fragile beauty's nostril. Alright, settle down. Come sit over here. As he squealed unintelligibly, I took him by the arm and sat him down. I grabbed the box of tissues off the shelf and pressed one to his nose. Just sit tight until it stops, okay?
これくらいのことで僕に恩を売った気か。残念だったな。僕はそう簡単に君の策略に乗る気はない。なぜなら、そもそも恩を売らせない。借りを作らせないのだからな。どうもありがとうございました。ほら、これでチャラだ。
He may have talked a big game, but none of it was very intimidating with a tissue up his nose. You're welcome. I giggled and sat down next to him. So, what's your name?
どうして君に名乗る必要がある？ちなみに、君の方から名乗れ無礼者とかいうどうでもいいやりとりをする気もないということを、そのすっからかんの頭に叩きつけておけ無礼者。
So I'm guessing that Alice doesn't remember Alice and the Dark World, I guess. Okay then, can I call you A?
はあ？いいわけあるか。僕の名前がわからないからといって適当に名付けようとするな。何のために二人称が存在していると思っている。名前がわからずとも、とりあえずあなたとかあなた様とか話を合わせることができるのが二人称の良さだろう。というか、あながち遠くない呼び名だからこそ微妙に腹が立つな。
Oh, really? So does your name start with A?
これ以上君とくだらないクイズをする気は毛頭ないのでさっさと正解を教えてやろう。僕の名前はアリス様だ。
The Great Lord Alice? What a coincidence. My name is actually really similar. It's...
別に言わずとも知っている。アリスだろ。
Correct. I shot him with finger guns. But how did you know?
僕が知っていることがおかしいか？むしろ当然だと思うがな。今までのことをその足りない頭で振り返ってみろ。君は君の名前を名乗っているだろう。というわけだ。これ以上君と付き合っていられないので僕は寝る。
Alice promptly flung himself down and pulled the blankets over his head. What? Hey, wait! I thought you were supposed to keep me company. I shook him by the shoulder. Lord Alice!
もううるさい、うっざい。一体君は何様のつもりだ？
A damsel in distress? He looked at me like I was pond scum.
君が囚われのお姫様だというなら縄にでも縛られてた方が良かったな。全国のド M な乙女が狂気乱舞する展開だろう。僕としても君が少しはおとなしくなってくれたのだとしたら実に都合がいい。
But I'm not a masochist.
なあ、君はド S だよ。 だいたい君が囚われのヒロインだというのなら、ヒロインらしい自覚を持て。何のために姫はお約束的に敵にさらわれると思っている？姫がか弱いから？何らかの特別な力を持っているから？違うな。さらわれた者を救い出すという英雄的役割を男に与えるために、囚われのお姫様は存在するのだろう。
True that. He was completely right. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten my role in this. I got up and opened the window. A frigid breeze blew in. Pressing my wind-blown hair down, I responded to his wordless gaze. I just can't help but worry he's out there, hurt and suffering, all for my sake. To me, it doesn't matter how cliché it may be.
そうか。
Yeah.
君の悲劇のヒロインぶった気持ちの悪い干渉はどうでもいいので、寒いから窓を閉めろ！早急にだ！
Oh dear. Alice never change. Fine. So much for our dramatic conversation. She's not here. She's not here, she's not here, she's not here. She's not anywhere. She was all I could think of as I ran through the town. From then on, I had pledged to live my life alone. I tried my best not to interact or involve myself with others. I lived hidden away from the public eye. I had no human connections, no friends, no lovers, nowhere to belong. No one knew I existed, no one cared. That's the way it was the year before last. That's the way it was last year. And that's the way it is now. I didn't feel sad about it. To me, it was the status quo. Until I met those nice people, this was just life. It merely returned to how things always were. But then one person came along and changed everything. They lived together with me, touched me, spoke to me. To me, these things were completely unfathomable and unorthodox. I admit we wouldn't have lived together if it weren't for the choices I made. But it was only temporary. I wasn't straying from the path. I was using her for my own purposes. To carry out my own little revenge story. I spotted Ryoshi entirely by chance. He seemed to be having a fun conversation with a girl I didn't know. 5 years had passed since then, and we'd both grown up, but I knew at once that he was the same guy from back then. The instant I looked at him, I felt my frozen heart start to thaw. Then all those memories I had never bothered to remember came flooding back, and with it came a new emotion I hadn't felt then. Resentment. I couldn't help but blame the entire grandmother incident on the fact that he had mistaken me for Wolf in the first place. Yes, I knew this resentment was misplaced. I knew it wasn't his fault. I knew who I really ought to blame. I didn't have any other way to vent this frustration. Like a river, time drifted on, and after months of agonizing over it, eventually I decided to go talk to Ryoshi for myself. I didn't expect it to solve anything, of course. I was just hoping that it would help me sort out my feelings. But over those few months, Ryoshi had disappeared without a trace, leaving me unable to track him down. All I knew was that he had a younger sister who lived alone in a large mansion, and she was the very girl I had seen him talking to. That was when I formulated a plan. I would Fuck! Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? Red Riding Hood, are you the wolf? What? What? No. I refuse to accept this. Nope. No. Okay. Right. I would anonymously harass her in order to lure her brother out of hiding. I thought surely he would have no choice but to take action if one of his family members were in danger. So I tailed her, sent threatening messages to her house, then watched for her reaction. Although she was related to Ryoshi, I never felt any resentment towards her. I may have wanted to frighten her, but I never intended to harm her. Is this just an excuse to feel better about myself? Perhaps. But the point remains, I never wished to do her any harm. Unfortunately, though his sister was in peril, Ryoshi never showed his face. Exasperated, I donned a policeman's garb in order to infiltrate the Arisu house myself. Why a policeman? I couldn't tell you. He wasn't even an actual policeman! What the hell? What the hell, Red? What? Maybe I was attached to the idea of a hero who could fight evildoers and protect the weak. Meanwhile, she accepted me and my deception all too easily. Strange. All at once, the girl I had watched from afar was now right in front of me. I tried everything I could to scare her enough to get her to call her brother over, but it all backfired spectacularly. She seemed to feel safe with me around. She believed me when I said I would protect her, and over time, I realized she was just as isolated as I was. Her family had left her all alone in a giant house in order to pursue their own ambitions. At first glance, she didn't seem that devastated about it, but I knew all too well how she must have felt deep down. I miss you. Over time, I grew to care for her more and more. She was like the sun, bright, warm, and lit up the room wherever she went. She was different from grandmother, different from my friend, and different from my mother too. She smiled at me. She cooked for me. She touched me. She consoled me. She claimed to love me. In just a few short days, she gave me so much. As I spent more and more time with her, it became harder and harder to breathe, like my chest was in a vice. I felt like I was drowning. There I was, flailing my limbs, desperate to reach the surface. Then she came along and pulled me up. All along, I had known the significance of this agony. I need you. A long time ago, I disobeyed my mother and ventured outside. If only I had obeyed her and kept myself cooped up in that dark house, I never would have made that discovery.
いいこと？あなたは他の子と違ってとってもいい子なの。だから、お外で遊んではダメ。周りのみんなは狼なの。狼はどんな悪いことをするかわからないから、話しかけられても知らん顔をしているのですよ。
I'm sorry, Mother. The truth is, I always yearned to explore the outside world. The temptation of the sunshine led me astray, and then I learned the truth. They weren't wolves at all. No, I was the wolf. And now, just as I yearned for the sunshine then, now I long to be by her side. But she was taken from me, and I was powerless to stop it. At the time, I was frozen in place, my knees quaking in fear. Some sorry excuse for a man I turned out to be. But I can't change who I am. I'm a stupid weakling who dares not trespass into another person's space. I'm no policeman.
Yurika.
Alone, I whispered her name.
Yurika-san. Yurika-san. Yurika-san! Yurika-san!
But no matter how many times I called for her, she never responded. No surprise there, of course. Not like she was around to hear it. I knew all along. I knew the second blackmail letter was intended not for her, but for me. Once I infiltrated her house as a policeman, my plan was to end the targeted harassment. But then a mysterious third party took up the reins in my stead, and their threats were steadily escalating. At first I wasn't sure what to do, but eventually I decided I wanted to rescue her from all the fear and uncertainty and loneliness. What an arrogant concept. I don't know what sort of person the wolf truly is. She told me she couldn't think of anything she'd done to cause someone's wrath. It was only natural, of course, because she was entirely innocent. If anything, I was the criminal who deserved punishment. And now that punishment had been dealt, in the form of her absence. No crime goes unpunished. And I have committed an unforgivable crime. Thus, I deserve retribution. However, I simply cannot abide her taking the brunt of it in my place. So I searched every place I could think of. I had no leads to go off of, so my only hope was to grasp at straws.
彼女ならここにはいないぞ。
彼女？なぜ彼女のことが聞きたいということを知っている？
Oh, Alice was with me.
知っているさ。何でもな。
なら教えてくれ。彼女は今どこにいる？
知ってどうする？
どうするってそれは。
腹を減らした悪い狼から彼女を救い出そうとでもしてるのか？
そうだ。
赤ずきん、確かに君は愚かで騙されやすい。だがしかし、狼が何に化けているのか気づいていないわけではないのだろう。罪には罰を。彼女を食べようとした悪い狼は腹を切り裂かれ、中には石ころを詰められ、最後には溺れてしまうだろう。それでも構わないと？
それが狼の末路なら仕方のないことだ。それよりも彼女は今真っ暗な世界に閉じ込められて怖い思いをしている。
それは漁師の役目では？君は漁師と違い何の武器も持たない無力な存在だ。騙されるだけの君に何ができる？わ
からない。ただ騙されてもいい。私は彼女の喜ぶ姿を見たいだけなのです。
君は本当に愚かだな。いや、正しくは愚直というべきか。もっと気を使った言い方をしてやるなら、素直というか無垢というか純粋というか。ま、考えることを放棄したバカには違いないがな。騙されるということは相手を信じているからだ。疑わないとも言うな。おそらくそれが君の武器でもあると同時にくさびでもあるのだろう。罪には罰を。果たして本当にそうなのか？
罪には。
赤ずきん、彼女は今湖にいる。彼女はお前をとっても可愛がってくれたのだから救い出してやれ。きっと彼女も喜ぶだろうさ。
あ
あ。赤ずきん、今度こそ道草するなよ。
There I was, standing on the lake pier. My hands were tied behind my back, and my captor's arm was around my neck, preventing my escape. Fortunately, he wasn't crushing my windpipe, so I could still breathe just fine. Who was my captor, you ask? None other than our very own wolf. Yep! I called it! I mean, particularly now that we found out that the second letter was more aimed at Red, and we found out that Wolf was his friend when he was a kid. It was kind of obvious at that point, right? Right. He stared straight ahead, his lips pursed together, unsmiling. It was so unlike his usual demeanor that I could scarcely speak. Red would be here any minute now, and when he arrived, the big bad wolf was going to gobble him right up. Poor gullible Red Riding Hood. Please, won't someone save him from the darkness?
Yurika-san!
Sure enough, he turned up, his face ashen. He must have run around searching the whole town. He was gasping for breath with a pained expression on his face. Red! I shouted in my most anguished voice, almost like I was a princess in a tower.
動くな。動いたらこの女を殺す。
His tone was menacing as he pressed a dagger to my cheek. Reflexively, I jerked away, causing his arm to clamp down tighter on my neck, and I began to struggle.
やめろ、やめてくれ、お願いだ。
ざまあないな、赤ずきん。いつもの余裕ぶった態度はどこ行ったんだよ。脅迫状は読んだだろう。罪を認めなければ、お前の大事なものをぶっ壊すってな。
Yeah, that was the thing earlier when Red was like, "What if he goes through with his threats and kills you?" Because the message said that they'd kill someone I cared about. So clearly he took it as aimed as him at that point, right? I mean, obviously he did because he knew he didn't write it. For goodness sake.
さあ、女を殺されたくなけりゃ罪を認めろ。
認めます、認めます。だからお願いします。
言葉ではそう言えるよな。
どうすればいい？何でもする、何でもするから彼女を傷つけないでください。
なんでもね。そうだ、赤ずきん。お前がかぶっているその頭巾を脱いでみろよ。そうしたらこいつを話してやるかもしれねえぞ。
I mean, I do want to see him with the hood off because I've been, as I said the first stream, actually I don't know if I said it during the stream or if I just thought it. I think there's wolf ears under that hood. I really think there's wolf ears under that hood. Or something, right? Because there must be a reason he doesn't ever take it off.
これを
どうした？できないのか？ただ脱げばいいだけなんだぞ。できないのなら。
As he spoke, Wolf dangled me over the lake.
脱ぎます。
His face drained of color, Red reached up and grabbed the fabric. Then, hands shaking, he slowly but surely lowered his hood. Yes! I was right! There's ears under there! Atop his head sat a distinctive pair of ears. Those ears! He hung his head, unwilling to meet my gaze.
どうした？こっちを見ろよ。
At this, he looked up again.
赤ずきん、それがお前の本性なんだよ。お前は狼なんだ。
そうです。私の本当の姿は正義の味方などではなく悪い狼なんです。
His voice shook as he confessed the truth.
そうだな。お前は狼だ。なら、どうすればいいかわかるな。
Red collapsed to his knees and prostrated himself.
謝る。私が謝るから彼女のことは許してください。全部私が悪かったんです。お願いです。どうか許してください。彼女には何の罪もないんです。
His voice cracked with fear. Nevertheless, he screamed and begged, pleading for my sake. Red. I felt sorry for him.
なあ、赤ずきん。俺が誰かわかるか？
誰か？
俺はお前を知っている。なら、お前も俺を知ってるはずだろう。
それは。
わからないのかよ。あっちゃん。俺のふりをして、ばあちゃんに会いに行っただろ。
Using the hand currently holding the dagger, Wolf reached up and pulled off his trademark black-rimmed glasses. After a long, long silence, Red whispered,
狼なのか。
ああ、そうだよ。狼だ。
Red's complexion turned snow white.
ごめんなさい、ごめんなさい、ごめんなさい、ごめんなさい、ごめんなさい。
ごめんなさいじゃねえよ。今の今まで俺の正体に気づかなかったくせに。
それは。
俺のこと忘れてたか。
そんなことはありません。ずっと覚えていました。あなたのことは一度も忘れたことはありません。
そうか。そうだよな。俺もお前のこと忘れてなかったぜ。
What I want to know right now is, does Wolf also have wolf ears that sit up in the little ear-shaped things?
もちろん。あの日のこともな。ひどい話だよな。俺はずっとお前のこと友達だと思ってたのにさ。お前は俺を裏切ったってわけだ。溺れた俺を放っておいて、自分は大好きなばあちゃんの見舞いに行って、ちゃっかり俺のふりしてるんだもんな。お前のせいで、あの後どうなったと思ってんだ。お前に騙されたと知ったら、ばあちゃんどう思うんだろうな。なあ、んな顔して、何震えてんだよ。
分かってます。
分かってねえよ。全然分かってねえ。俺はさ、ずっとお前のこと探してたぜ。お前を探し出して、ずっと伝えたかった言葉があったからな。なんだか分かるか。分かんねえよな。昔からバカだったもんな、お前。そりゃそうだ。みんなが学校行ってる間、お前はずっとこの湖で一人ぼっちでいたんだもんな。かわいそうに。俺はそんなお前に声をかけてやったよな。遊んでやったよな。家にも招待して、俺の家族を紹介してやったよな。俺たちはよくいたずらして、ばあちゃんに怒られたっけな。ばあちゃんは怖かったけど、優しくて。俺たちはそんなばあちゃんのこと大好きだった。はい。お前、今もそれかぶってんのな。ばあちゃんがお前のために作ってくれた。ばあちゃん、分かってたんだよな。お前がずっとその頭気にしてるってこと。だから、なのに、お前はばあちゃんが病気で弱ってる時に、ばあちゃんを騙そうとしたんだ。
ごめんなさい。
なあ、なんでお前はあの時、私は狼じゃありませんって言わなかったんだよ。
ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。
またそれか。いいか。俺はな、お前の謝罪なんて欲しくねえんだよ。
だったら、どうすれば。
罪を認めろって言ったろ。
だからさっきから認めてるだろ。
I think he wants you to say it yourself, dude.
全然分かってねえよ、お前。てか何キレてんだ。だから俺は。
いい加減彼女を離せ。私にどれだけ罪があろうと彼女には罪はない。
ああ、そうかもな。お前と彼女の罪は別物だ。てか、お前本当に彼女のこと好きなんだな。なあ、その好きってどうなの？彼女がお前に優しいから好きになりましたってか？
え？
それじゃあ、ばあちゃんの時と一緒じゃねえか。お前、 本当は自分に優しくしてくれるやつなら誰でもいいんだろ
Well, like, I mean, of course he's gonna like people who are nice to him. His own mother kind of rejected him.
優しくされたことがないから優しくしてくれるやつに懐いてるだけだ。お前は自分を捨てた母ちゃんの幻想を俺のばあちゃんに、そして今度は彼女に見てるだけだろ。
I mean, I know I just kind of said something similar, but ow! He let out an almost wolfish howl. As his scream rent the air, I grew worried that he might be breaking.
なら彼女をここで失っても大丈夫だよな。だって彼女がいなくなっても彼女の代わりはいるもんな。ばあちゃんみたいにさ。
違う。
He screamed at the top of his lungs. He was consciously denying Wolf's claim of his own volition.
違う。そうじゃない。確かに私はこんな私に優しくしてくれる人が好きです。でも彼女の代わりは誰もいません。もちろんおばあさんも。狼のあなたのおばあさんには申し訳ないことをしたと思ってます。私はあなたが羨ましかった。あなたは私にはないものをたくさん持っていたから。
だから奪おうと思ったのか。
違うんだ。本当にあなたを妬んでいたのは事実です。だけど騙す気なんてなかったんだ。
でも結果的にお前はあの日嘘をついた。
はい、その通りです。私はあなたのふりをしておばあさんを騙しました。あの日駆けつけた漁師からおばあさんが倒れたと聞いて体が震えました。あの優しかったおばあさんが、元気だと思っていたおばあさんがどうしてだろうと。それで漁師に手をつかまれ病院に行けと言われて、私はおばあさんの孫は狼の方だ、私は違うと言うべきだったのに、おばあさんは私ではなく狼の名前を呼んでいたというのに、私は漁師が私と狼を間違えたのをいいことにおばあさんの孫だと嘘をついた。
そうだな。そしてお前はその罪を漁師さんになすりつけようとしたんだな。
違います。
何が違うんだよ。でなきゃ脅迫状なんて送らねえだろ。
それはその通りです。私は本当は罪から逃れたかったんです。悪いのは私です。でもあくまでも嘘をついた動機は、きっかけは漁師が間違えたからだと私は思いたかった。本当にすみませんでした。
His voice was watery. He bowed until his forehead pressed against the ground.
そうか。あの時お前があんな嘘つかなきゃこんなことにはならなかったんだろうな。
Wolf sounded sad, disappointed perhaps. Then he slowly moved the dagger.
罪には罰を。お前に与える罰は。
やめろ彼女を返せ。
Red lunged forward, screaming, desperate to get the dagger away from me.
ちょっと
Ah! As Wolf stepped back, his foot slipped.
が
And that was the last sound he made before the two of us plunged into the lake. The next thing I knew, we were drowning in the watery abyss. The lake was much deeper than I realized, and we were sinking to the bottom. More specifically, Wolf still had his arm around me, inadvertently dragging me down as he struggled and panicked. As I choked, air escaped my lips in big bubbles that rose to the surface. All I could see was blue, and the deeper we sank, the darker it became. I couldn't breathe. I flailed my limbs desperately, but to no avail. My leaden body refused to cooperate, and the light was growing ever more distant. Someone please help us. I reached out my hand, and Red Riding Hood pulled us up. Good on him having the arm strength to pull two people out of a lake, huh? Once I was back on dry land, I coughed up the water lodged in my windpipe. I could finally breathe again, but not without intense chest pain that brought tears to my eyes.
Yurika-san!
Whoa! Red threw his arms around me.
Yokatta!
Red. There in his arms, the pain seemed to melt away. This time it was not my lungs, but my eyes that burned like they were on fire. You saved us. Thank you. He pulled away from me slightly and gazed at me. His eyes seemed damp with emotion, or lake water, I suppose.
ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。ゆりかさん。私は、あなたに謝らなければならない。私はずっと、あなたに嘘をついていました。私は、あなたを守る警察官などではありません。私は、私の本当の正体は、見ての通り、悪い狼なのです。私はあなたを騙していたんです。本当に申し訳ありませんでした。
He squeezed his eyes shut. Tears trickled out between his lashes and rolled down his cheeks. I quietly wiped them away. Honestly, I'm the one who should apologize.
ゆりかさん。
I knew you were deceiving me, and I was deceiving you right back.
私を騙す。
Yeah, all the harassment that took place after you came to my house, all of it was completely staged. I'm so sorry. I hung my head in shame. Wolf and Ryoshi told me all about you. And after everything I heard, I decided I would take part in their scheme. Not only did I hide it from you, I took advantage of your kindness, and I can see how much our little stunt has hurt you. I'm really sorry, Red. At this sudden confession, Red fell quiet. I had braced myself for this, of course, but it didn't make the silence any less uncomfortable. I might have really hurt him. The thought was like a knife in my chest.
こりゃまたえらい目にあったな。
Just then I heard a familiar deep voice from somewhere above me. I looked up to find Mr. Ryoshi, standing over us with a lollipop in his mouth.
よ、久しぶりだな。元気だったか？
お前は
Red pulled me close while glaring daggers up at my brother. No surprise there, I guess. After all, Ryoshi was the true mastermind behind this plot.
ねえねえ、俺もいるんすけど。
Wolf looked at us reproachfully as he staggered to his feet.
狼
はあ、どっこいしょっと。風邪ひいちゃったかも。この前ひいたばっかだってのに。っていうか、突然襲いかかるなよ。 マジビビった。
He sniffed.
でだ、赤ずきんと狼と漁師と役者が揃ったところで、どこから話す？
We exchanged looks.
は？
Meanwhile, Red was struggling to process this. The dramatic tension had evaporated, leaving him blinking, baffled. I pulled away from him slightly to lead things off. First off, let's all introduce ourselves. I'm Eureka Arisu. Next.
アリス漁師だ。お前も知っての通り、アリスユリカの兄で漁師をしている。
で、最後に真打ち登場。俺様の出番っすね。俺は狼。アリスちゃんとは男女の仲を超えたソウルメイトで、漁師さんとは命の恩人兼師弟関係。で、赤ずきん、お前とは幼馴染で友達だ。
友達？私と狼が？
っておい！まずそこに食いつくんかいてか、友達以外に俺たちの関係を表す言葉なんてある？
お前は私を恨んでるんじゃ。
誰が恨んでるって言ったよ。勝手に勘違いしてんじゃねえよ、バーカ。
Yeah, that's what I thought. I shook my head. Honestly, I can't really blame him. After the blackmail letter and that little tirade of yours, anyone would think you hated them.
え、マジっすか？
Dead serious, my dude. I nodded, and Wolf winced apologetically.
いや、俺もつい途中から感情的になっちまったっていうかさ。
お知り合いなんですか？
だからさっき言ったろ。アリスちゃんとは友達だって。
もしかしてゆりかさんが言っていた男の友人というのは？
Yep, that was Wolf.
もしもーし。
Red seemed to have mentally shut down. Wolf waved a hand in front of his face.
彼女を脅していたナイフは？
なあ、これおもちゃだよ、おもちゃ。よくできてるよな。
I see, it's one of those.
じゃあ、
Oh, whoops.
もしかして屋敷を
I'm
荒ら
supposed
し
to
た
read
りし
out
た
the
の？
things. Sorry, Wolf pressed the tip of the dagger against his palm and the entire blade retracted into the handle. There we go.
あ、俺。
He raised his hand enthusiastically.
いやー、さすがにちょいやりすぎかなとは思ったんだけど、漁師さんがさ。
やるなら徹底的にやらねえと真実味がないだろ。
I still think you went overboard, personally. I'm guessing you want to know why you were deceived, huh?
はい。
Long story short, we wanted you to understand. It was like a moral lesson.
教訓？
We wanted to show you that you're not alone. We wanted you to realize that.
孤独じゃない。
Ryoshi and Wolf told me basically the whole story. They were both worried about you. See, you're convinced that you're all alone, that you have to be. To you, anything to you, anything else would be a sin. Because this is your self-enforced punishment for the crime you committed. But the truth is, you hate it more than anything. You've always hated being alone. But your integrity kept you from acknowledging that fact. You stubbornly refused to accept it. Then, as the years went by, your loneliness became the status quo. But too much solitude would turn your heart to ice. So we felt we had to save you before you froze over completely. Then I got that blackmail letter from you, so the three of us talked about it and we decided to use the opportunity to our advantage. That said, not everything went exactly according to plan. I gave a self-depreciating laugh.
私は。
っていうかひでえよ、あっちゃん。 なんで俺のこと見てすぐに気づかねえんだよ。完全に俺のこと忘れてただろ。せっかく狼イコール狼つながりで分かりやすいヒント出したってのに、結局俺の方から名乗らなきゃわかんねえでやんの。
忘れてないけど、狼はそんなダサいメガネなんてかけてなかったし。
今笑ったっすね。ひって
うるせえ。無駄口叩いてねえでとっとと話を進めろ。
At last, Ryushi broke his silence in order to land a kick on Wolf.
もうひどいっすよ、漁師さん。
Ryushi jerked his chin in a gesture of shut up and explain your side of things.
俺さ、ずっとお前のことが気がかりだった。お前が俺のふりしてばあちゃんの見舞いに行ったあの日から、お前は俺の前から姿を消した。で、俺もすぐに手術のために引っ越すことになって、お前と会うこともなくて。でも、ずっと心に引っかかってた。俺さ、無事に手術も成功して元気になって、思いっきり走れるようになったんだぜ。昔とは違うんだ。もう無理だとかしちゃダメだとか言われないし、言わせねえ。そんな俺がなんでこんなクソ田舎に戻ってきたと思う？全部お前のためなんだよ、赤ずきん。
Wolf pointed squarely in Red's face.
私のため？
そうだよ。で、ようやくお前を見つけて喜んで話しかけたってのにスルーだぜ、スルー。
Oh, poor Wolf.
いつのことだ？
俺がこの町にやってきてすぐのことだよ。ほら覚えてねえし。
仕方ないだろ。時間も経っていたし。
そりゃそうだけどさ、俺は分かったんだし、白状じゃね？俺という親友を忘れたのかこの野郎ってあの時は思ったね。まあでもその後たまたま漁師さんとも再会してな。そん時にお前の事情をいろいろ聞いた。あの後お前ずーっと一人でいたんだってな。まさかあの時のことずっと気にしてるなんて思わなかったよ。ばっかじゃねえの。
そんな言い方しなくたっていいだろう。
いや、俺にはお前にいろいろ言う権利があるね。なんたってお前は俺を湖に置き去りにした挙句、俺のふりしてばあちゃんの見舞いに行ったんだからな。
それは
俺があの後どれだけお前を探したと思ってんだ。俺はお前に言いたいこといっぱいあったんだよ。なのに逃げやがって。俺はな、お前が俺を置いて俺のふりしてばあちゃんに会いに行ったことを怒ってんじゃなくて、その後俺の前から姿を消したことに怒ってんだよ。
ごめん。
もういいよ。数年越しになっちまったけど、こうしてまた話せたわけだしな。俺さ、ちゃんとばあちゃんの見舞いに行ったよ。
え？
溺れたのを助けてもらった後、漁師さんに病院に連れて行ってもらって、その時にばあちゃんに会ったんだ。ばあちゃん元気だったよ。悪い病気にかかって大変そうだったけど、でもちゃんと話できた。そんで俺ちゃんといつもわがままばっか言ってごめん。ばあちゃんはこんな俺のこといいよって笑って許してくれた。
そうか。
でさ、友達を大事にしなさいって言われた。 あの子はとても素直で真面目ないい子だよ。でもね、だからこそあの子は一人で抱え込んじゃうんだ。きっとあの子は誰よりも一人は寂しいって感じてるはずだから。だから俺が強くなってあの子を助けてやれって。綺麗なお花ありがとう。そう。ばあちゃん、
その声は狼ちゃんかい？
ああ、そうだぜ。ばあちゃんの孫の狼だよ。ばあちゃん、ごめん俺わがままばっか言ってばあちゃんのこと困らせて。
いいんだよ。おばあちゃんは狼ちゃんが元気でいてさえくれればそれでいいんだから。狼ちゃんがお父さんとお母さんと離れてとっても寂しいこと分かってるのに、狼ちゃんがみんなと同じように目いっぱい遊びたがってることも分かってるのに、おばあちゃん何もしてやれなくてごめんね。
そんなことねえよ。確かに俺こっちに一人で来て初めの頃は友達もいないし、親父もおふくろもいなくて寂しかったけど、いつもそばにはばあちゃんがいてくれたし、それに親友もできた。二人とも俺の大事な宝物なんだ。
そうかい。よかったよかった。おばあちゃんもね、二人が仲良くしてるのを見てるのが楽しかったよ。
なんてそんな言い方するんだよ。もっと一緒にいてよ。でないとまた俺一人ぼっちになっちゃうよ。
そんなことない。赤ずきんちゃんがいるだろ。
いるけど、でも俺ばあちゃんにも一緒にいてほしい。その花、
花、ああ、綺麗だろ。あの子が持ってきてくれたんだよ。赤ずきんちゃん、あの子はとても素直で真面目ないい子だよ。狼ちゃんに赤ずきんちゃんみたいなお友達ができて、おばあちゃんも嬉しかったよ。でもね、だからこそあの子は一人で抱え込んじゃうんだ。だから狼ちゃんが強くなってあの子を助けておやり。狼ちゃんはあの子がいて助けられたんだろ。
俺あいつの助けになるよ。
狼ちゃんはいい子だね。
当たり前じゃん。だって俺ばあちゃんの孫だもん。
おばあさんは私が嘘をついていたことに気づ。
お前な、マジで全部お見通しなんだよ。お前はお前の周りにいる人たちのこと甘く見すぎなんだよ。お前の周りにいる奴らはな、俺を含めてお前のことちゃんと見てんだよ。お前は一人じゃねえってことにいい加減早く気づけよ、バカ。俺だってな、ガキの頃体が弱くて静養のためだからって都会からこんな田舎に一人ばあちゃん家に預けられて、周りに誰も知り合いはいねえし、学校も満足に行けねえし、寂しかったんだよ。 お前が湖で一人でいるのを見て、ああ、こいつもしかしたら俺の仲間かもしれないって思った。だから声かけて、何度も声かけて、諦めかけた時にお前が答えてくれて嬉しかったんだよ。俺嬉しかったんだよ。一人がいいだなんて嘘だ。本当は俺だって誰かと仲良くしたかった。お前だって本当はずっとそう思ってたんだろう。
狼。ああ、そうだ。
I forgot to read the thing again. It's been so. Wolf's tears were contagious, and Red soon began to shed a few of his own.
外に出てはいけないという言いつけを破ってまでも出たかったのは一人が寂しかったからだ。狼と会っておばあさんと会ってようやく一人じゃなくなって、おばあさんが倒れたと聞いたとき怖かったんだ。もしもおばあさんがいなくなったらまた一人になるかもしれないって。でも結局自分のせいで一人に逆戻りになってずっと寂しかった。寂しかった。
Tears rolled down his cheeks as his heart began to defrost.
ようやく認めたな。
何を？
それがお前が抱えていた罪の正体、つまりは罪悪感だ。
罪悪感？
ああ、そうだ。聞いたことくらいはあるだろう。自分のありように関して自分は悪い、自分は罪を犯したという気持ちのことだ。まあお前自身そのものだな。
That tracks.
お前は過去に起きた出来事により心を深く閉ざしてしまった。お前は笑うことを、幸せになることを許さなかった。だからこそお前は嬉しいことも幸せなことも拒絶し、一人でいることを選んだ。ゆりかも言ったが、長年の孤独はお前の心を凍らせてしまうだろう。その証拠に俺をどうにかしようとしたろ。内包した罪悪感が許容を超えた時、自分でも意識しないうちに過剰な行動に出ることがある。それは自分を傷つけるだけでなく、時には他人に向かうこともある。自分が悪いのはあいつのせいだというふうにな。お前は今まで自分を厳しく罰していたようだが、それはいつまでも続かない。心は摩耗し、いつかはなくなってしまう。そんな時に偶然再会した俺を憎むことで、かろうじて救われてたってわけだ。俺も漁師という仕事の関係上、お前のことはよく知っててな。これ以上手遅れになる前にお前を助ける必要があった。あとはまあ、お前にトラウマ作っちまったのは俺にも原因があるってのが気がかりでな。で、まあそのトラウマを乗り越えてもらえるよう、俺が今回の脚本を用意してやったわけだ。ま、どっかの誰かが大幅に書き換えちまったけどな。
Away awkwardly. But then Ryoshi grabbed me by the head and forced me to look at Red.
罪悪感を癒すには、誰かがお前を許すことだ。
許す？
ああ、そうだ。正直こんなクソまどろっこしいことしなくたって、ばあさんのことも狼のこともお前をとっ捕まえて説明すりゃ済む話だ。だがな、お前の場合はただそれだけじゃ解決しねえんだよ。さっきも言ったが、 お前の心は長い時の間にがんじがらめになっちまったんだ。ただ事実だけを説明したとしてお前は許されたとは感じないだろう。お前が許されたと感じるためにはまずお前が自ら罪と向き合わなければならなかった。ま、そんな時に都合よくお前から脅迫状が届いたことだし、それを利用して一芝居打とうってことになった。お前は悪くないと。お前の善も悪も全て受け入れてくれる、そんな人物の登場を待っている。俺が書いたのはそういう筋書きだ。
Red looked from Wolf to me.
私は許されたんでしょうか。
そりゃお前が一番よく知ってんだろ。
つうわけだ。後の問題はお前に任せる。
Rishi patted me on the head. Right.
ゆりかさん。
I balled my fists in my lap. Then, after a deep breath, I looked Red squarely in the eye. I'm sorry, Red. Regardless of my motive, the fact is, I deceived you. I won't ask you to forgive me, and I won't blame you if you hate my guts for it.
なぜあなたが謝るんですか？
What? This unexpected reply caught me off guard. But it was all an act, everything. I tricked you. I knew Wolf and Ryoshi were behind a lot of the harassment, but I chose not to tell you, on purpose.
それは分かっています。しかし、そもそもあなたを巻き込んだのは私が脅迫状を送ったことが原因ですし。
Okay, valid point. Wait, no it isn't. I'm...
私はただあなたが無事で良かったと思っただけです。
I had meant to say I'm a bad person before he interrupted me. As I stared at him in surprise, he smiled slightly.
私はあなたが傷つくことが一番嫌だった。うわっ！ミス・アリス、どうしたんですか？
Guessing she's crying since everything went kind of blurred. Tears streaked down my face, one after another. My vision blurred until all I could see was a vaguely red smear. Then I hung my head and choked out. You're just too good to me. Please call me by my name. I don't know how I found the strength to make that selfish demand at a time like this, but somehow I did.
ゆりかさん。
Sorry, I can't hear you. Could you repeat that?
ゆりかさん！
What is it, Red? I looked up and donned a smile, but my face was still messy with tears, so it must have looked pretty pathetic. I was just so happy that he smiled at me, I couldn't stop myself.
一つ聞いてもいいですか？
Sure, what is it?
あなたが私を騙していたというなら、あなたが私を好きだと言ったことも。
Wait, asking the important questions. Asking the important questions.
いえ、やはり答えてくれなくても構いません。
Why is that?
私はバカですから、疑うことを知らないんです。
He smiled shyly. Oh, Red. Will you forgive me for my part in the deceit?
はい。私はあなたを許します。そして、私自身を許します。
Red! Unable to hold back, I threw my arms around him.
うわー！
I love you so much!
ゆりかさん、そんな状態で抱きつかれたら。
Go ahead and have your nosebleed. I'll be right there to mop it up. or punch you, or punch me until I let go. Either way.
そんなことはしないですけど、お兄さんも狼もいますし。
Then consider me an exhibitionist.
手打ちプレイ。
あ、今変な想像しただろ。いやらしい。
してない。してませんからね。変な想像なんてするわけないだろう。お前じゃあるまいし、エロ狼。
なんだよなんだよ。俺らガキの頃ばあちゃんに隠れてエロ本読んでた仲だろ。
な。
Kinky.
マジで？なあなあアリスちゃん、こんな童貞野郎じゃなくて俺と遊ぼうよ。俺の方が絶対楽しいって。
Hate to break it to you, Wolf, but I'm not the type to go astray.
道草はいいっすよ。楽しいっすよ。
この辺にしておけ。
いて。
帰るぞ、狼。
マジで？お兄さん、妹ちゃんがこのまま本番突入してもいいんす。
湖に捨てるぞ。
それだけはマジ勘弁っす。あん時俺マジで死ぬと思ったんすからね。ブレアクション。
おい、ユリカ。とりあえず固まってるそいつを何とかしてやれ。
Sure thing. Thanks, big brother. And so Ryoshi walked off, dragging Wolf by the scruff of the neck. As for Red, he was opening and closing his mouth in rapid succession like a fish washed ashore. Well, it looks like it's just the two of us. With my arm still around his neck, I batted my lashes flirtatiously.
の
Yes?
あなたは私のことキスですか？
You mean like a kiss?
キス
Yeah, I'd like that. I pecked him on the lips. What is it they always say afterwards? Thanks for the treat?
何を言ってるんですか？私は狼なんですよ。
I'm not going to stop loving you because you're a wolf. I mean, sure, your animal side may catch me off guard from time to time, but I'm not entirely opposed. If anything, it's actually kind of endearing.
好き。
Ever since the boys told me about you, I was always a little curious, and after spending time with you, I was officially head over heels. So I asked Wolf to give me a slightly different role to play. You're always so earnest and dutiful, your shy side is adorable, your sincerity is sweet, you're just all around lovable.
私はバカですよ。狼が言った通り、どうしようもなく頭が悪いんです。失ってからじゃないと大切なものに気がつかない大バカ者なんです。それに私はあなたのことを騙した。
I promptly shut him up, with my lips. We slowly pulled apart, and I smiled. We'll consider that your punishment for lying to me. Now it's your turn to punish me. I closed my eyes as if to say, have at it, Tiger.
こんなのむしろご褒美。
The second kiss apparently exceeded his maximum threshold because he exploded into a nosebleed and passed out. What the? Red! Pull yourself together, Red!
愛など知らなければよかった。知らなければ私はきっとこの苦しみも知ることはなかっただろう。 誰の言葉だって？さあ、誰だろうね。愛を知った赤ずきんは同時に孤独を知った。でも再び誰かに愛されることで孤独から救われた。孤独って何だろうね。人は一人で生きていけるわけないのに、自分が取り残されたように感じるんでしょ？君も孤独を感じてる？僕はよくわからないな。まあでもこれでめでたしめでたし、ハッピーエンド一丁上がりってね。
Yay!
満足かい？
This actually is the happy ending. Right. Thank you, game. And Mr. Fourth Wall Breaking Wizard. Once upon a time, there lived a lonely little boy. The boy was perpetually isolated. Why? Because his mother had warned him that the outside world was full of wicked wolves, and he wasn't to speak with them. And so he lived hidden away from the world with no personal connections. But the boy yearned to explore the world, and one day while his mother was away, he snuck out of the house to visit the lake. The outside world was vast and filled with things he had never seen before, but the boy only ventured to the lake alone. It was expected for children his age to attend school, but not him. Then one day, a boy named Wolf called out to him. The lonely boy remembered his mother's warning and tried to ignore Wolf, but over time he found it hard to believe that the other boy could be wicked. The more they talked, the closer the two boys became. Wolf had a poor constitution and lived together with his grandmother. After she met the lonely boy, she sewed him a Red Riding Hood so that he could conceal his unusual appearance from the world. It suited him well, and from that day forward, everyone referred to him as Red Riding Hood. Every day spent with Wolf was a blast for Red Riding Hood. Day after day, he would sneak out of the house to go see him. One day, the two boys were playing together when all of a sudden, a man rushed over to them. The man told them grandmother had fallen ill and was looking for her grandson. Then the man grabbed Red Riding Hood's arm instead of Wolf's. "I'm not Wolf." It should have been an easy feat to correct the misunderstanding, but instead Red Riding Hood left to visit grandmother in place of Wolf. In doing so, he had betrayed not only his mother, but now Wolf and grandmother as well. When he returned home that night, he was surprised to see the lights were on. His mother was home. Hesitantly, he opened the door, and inside he found his mother staring at him with cold, distant eyes. After that night, his mother never returned to him again. He cursed himself for disobeying her. If only he hadn't have disobeyed his mother and gone astray, he never would have betrayed and ultimately lost everyone he ever cared about. Alone, Red Riding Hood looked at himself in the mirror. Big ears, sparkling eyes, and a deceitful tongue. That was when he realized the real reason his mother had kept him inside was because he himself was a wicked wolf. From then on, Red Riding Hood decided never to get attached to anyone ever again. Instead, he chose a life of quiet solitude. His mother was gone, Wolf and his grandmother were gone. He lived alone, without anyone by his side. He would never go astray again. This was his punishment. Time passed. One sunny day, a much older Red Riding Hood spotted a hunter walking by. As luck would have it, it was the same man who had mistaken him for Wolf that fateful day. The hunter was walking with a princess whose smile was radiant like the sun. Weighed down with crushing loneliness, Red Riding Hood grew unbearably jealous. Then something occurred to him. If he transformed himself into a police officer to protect the princess, he could use her to get close to the hunter. Having successfully wormed his way into the princess's castle, Red Riding Hood attempted to frighten the princess, but nothing worked as planned. Instead, an entirely different big bad wolf started to harass her as well. The more time he spent with her, the more he sincerely wanted to keep her safe. But the more he fell for her, the more guilty he felt for deceiving her. Once he caught the big bad wolf, Red Riding Hood vowed to confess everything to the princess. But the moment he took his eyes off her, she was kidnapped by the big bad wolf. When he went to the lake to rescue her, there he found a much older wolf holding the princess hostage. As it turned out, Wolf was the other big bad wolf. He ordered Red Riding Hood to admit his crimes in exchange for the princess's safe return. Convinced that his friend resented him for visiting grandmother in his place, Red Riding Hood apologized again and again. But Wolf didn't care. Eventually, Wolf lost patience and tried to hurt the princess. In a panic, Red Riding Hood lunged forward, sending the three of them toppling into the lake. Once Red Riding Hood had rescued the two of them, he apologized for his deceit. The truth is, I'm a big bad wolf. At this, the princess's sunny smile clouded over, and she apologized in return. I knew you were deceiving me, and I was deceiving you right back. Then the hunter walked over and revealed the truth. It was all part of an elaborate ploy set up by Wolf, the princess, and the hunter himself. Now an adult, Red Riding Hood was still chained down by the sins of his childhood, and solitude was his miserable punishment. There was one way to save him: to forgive his crimes. When Wolf told him to admit his crimes, what he really meant was, come to terms with your mistakes. The princess forgave Red Riding Hood for telling lies, and Red Riding Hood forgave her in return as well as himself. And so, vindicated by the power of love, Red Riding Hood and the princess lived happily ever after.
Slowly opening my eyes, there's a familiar view. So sweet, such a sweet person is near me, cuddling and sleeping softly. You wandered here for a very long time, and all that you had, just pure and brave heart. I want to make sure I hear your beat, want to feel your breath close to me. You're looking for me. Yes, I'm waiting here. If two hearts are keep calling, they'll meet someday. Let me tell you fairy tale, listen to the whistle bells. Every day, there is something at the end. At the end, happiness is never end, never end. Let inside the luminous light, open the door to the happiest days. Let me tell you fairy tale, flower petals everywhere, everywhere. I am choosing happy end, happy end, everlasting happy end, happy end. When I met you, I knew it's you. Warm and lonely, I am in love. Let's begin our true fairy tale. It's starting just here and now.
That was a nice ending song. Yeah, an eventful ride. Yeah, that. I was not expecting those twists. Anyway, where are we? Once upon a time in the Looking Glass world, there lived a lonely young man who spent all his days in perfect solitude. He lived hidden away from the world with no personal connections to speak of. But that's all in the past now. Here we go, an epilogue.
よし、今日こそは言うぞ。
Hello, who is it?
赤ずきんです。よかったら開けていただけると助かります。
Being awfully formal there. Red, welcome. You're rather early.
こんにちは、ゆりかさん。この度はお茶会にお招きいただきましてありがとうございます。
Of course. Likewise. Thanks for coming.
ゆりかさん。
Yes? What is it?
このお花。
Wow, what lovely carnations. For me?
はい。あなたのことを思って摘んできました。
Thank you so much. I love them.
喜んでいただけて何よりです。
Yes?
まだ狼や漁師さんは来てはいないんですよね。
Nope, just you so far.
そうですか。いえ、
Red? Care to explain why exactly you turned up ahead of time?
それは、彼らに邪魔をされたくなかったからでして。
Yeah. So you wanted to be alone with me?
そうです。あなたと二人きりになりたかったんです。迷惑でしたか？
Of course not. If anything, I support it.
そうですか。よかった。それでですね。今日こそはあなたにあの時のお返事をと思いまして。
What question?
はい、あの時の。ゆりかさん、私はあなたのことが
Yes?
好きだらけです。
Should have seen that one going.
いえ、違います。今のは間違いです。忘れてください。
Okay, poof. Memory deleted.
では、もう一度やり直しますね。
Okay.
ゆりかさん、私はあなたのことが
Hello?
すみません。わざとじゃないんです。つい。なんというか、こういうことには慣れていなくて。というより、初めてと言いますか。
Look, Red, you don't have to tell me today. I'll gladly wait until you're ready.
いえ、それではダメなんです。
Okay, why is this unacceptable?
それは、あなたにばかり告白させて、それをいつまでも保留にするのは男らしくありません。
Red?
カーネーション。ゆりかさん、あなたは知っていますか？赤いカーネーションの花言葉。
Oh shoot, I don't know all the colours of carnations in flower language, darn it. I know some flower language, but not a huge amount. Nope. Will you tell me?
赤いカーネーションの花言葉は、母の愛を信じる。それと、熱烈な愛だそうです。
Ardent love?
はい。ゆりかさん、私はあなたのそばにいると溺れたように息が苦しくなって 心臓がドキドキしてわけがわからなくなるんです。でもそれは決して嫌な気持ちではなくて、むしろとても楽しい気持ちで、あなたともっと一緒にいたいと思うんです。そしてあなたと離れている時はあなたの顔ばかりが思い浮かんで、やっぱり胸が苦しくなるんです。で、それはなぜなのか自分なりに考えてみたんですが、その結果、私はあなたのことがとても気になっているのではないかと思いまして。いえ、違いますね。私はあなたにいつの間にか夢中になっていたのだと思います。ゆりかさん、
Yes?
好きです。私はあなたのことが大好きです。
Good job, he said it, he said it, he said it, he said it. Good job rewriting it.
だからすみません。
Red, was that?
これは私を騙したあなたへの罰です。花束越しですが、これでおあいこにはなりませんか？
So you could manage about to kiss the flowers.
どうしましたか？顔が真っ赤ですよ。もしかしてまた風邪ですか？
My chest aches and I can't breathe.
それは大変です。今すぐベッドに運ばないと。
Ed?
え、ゆりかさん？ゆりかさん！
And they lived happily ever after. Ta-da! Hooray! And now we get the opening again.
Little town is open in the dark, shadow from the mouse. Elephant is dancing on top of my palm, tapping so nicely. Look at this, look at that. Fish is crossing the black sand. Hey, look here, hey, look there. Bird is swimming in the sea. I am on my way, humming happy songs and never got down. All of them I got she raise a cat that's berry from every shadow is my little planet. I am on my way, humming happy songs and never got down. All of them I go where was the sea? I have been looking for no, I don't know, no, I can't recall. I can't find closer to deity. Where are you? I have been waiting for you. Yes, I am here. So can you hear me? Never mercy words. Little town is wrapping in the dark. Shadow from the mouse. Elephants is dancing on the top of my palm. Tell me so nicely, dear friends, wait for me. Don't ever let go of dream. Dear friends, wait for me. Don't ever let go of that dream.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Yeah, good story. Oh, there's a little chibi Red Riding Hood on the paint on the thing now. Oh, that's adorable. All right, so that was Taisho Alice's Red Riding Hood route, which is the only one I'll be playing on stream. I'll be playing the rest of the game off stream. And okay, so that means that for next time we do this, I need another game. There is a poll currently on Twitter, and the last time I looked at it, it's tied. So we'll see what happens with that in the next couple of days. And I guess if it's still tied, I'll have to pick myself. So, thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, consider subscribing to the channel, follow me on Twitter. The schedule for next week will get posted at some point. It's probably going to be Tuesday, the next stream, and it's pretty much definitely going to be Isvara Ramona. So yeah, thanks for coming, and I'll see you again next time. Kalla signing off. Bye bye. See ya.